With nanotechnology kind of really increasing the velocity of computation and the existence of both good actors and bad actors, how from an ethical point of view, can the influence, because it may be very hard to undo something when it's happening at nano speed, how do we navigate this kind of territory of
Yeah,
ethics?
I mean, I don't think I have a general answer to kind of the, we might think of as like the computational arms race. I think that arms race is being played out in many domains, so in particular, computer security has this kind of flavor all the time, right? It's like, in computer security, you try to anticipate all of the ways in which hackers might breach your system or your data, but they have the luxury of figuring out your vulnerabilities and the things that you didn't think about and getting you there, okay? And so I think that area, the more data you have, the more compute power you have, that all helps, but at the end of the day, the thing is fundamentally some kind of game between two players, and the game is harder to be the defender than the attacker, right? Because it's kind of like a universal versus an existential quantifier. The defender has to think to protect against everything. The attacker just has to find the one thing that you didn't think of, okay? But I do think, like one concrete example where I think things do need to change is in the regulatory approach to tech companies. So to the extent that large regulatory agencies in the US want to get serious about preventing the kinds of harms that we discuss in the book on users, I think we are in a very flawed state right now where the regulatory agencies, first of all, in their defense, have very strong limitations on what they can and can't do right now, and they're basically at a great disadvantage to the big tech companies. So, people think of it as like a big win for the regulatory community when Facebook has to pay a huge fine for severe privacy violations, and then the main remedy to that going forward is like, you need to fix your internal processes and people. Like, imagine an alternative world where like the FTC or the DOJ or what have you actually is allowed internal access to the systems, data, and algorithms of a company like Facebook, and can sort of find misdeeds, before they have widespread damage. So this is going to require legal and regulatory change. Tech companies are going to be resistant to it, but there's nothing conceptual about it that's difficult, right? If an algorithm is exhibiting racial, gender, or other discrimination, there's a way of auditing those algorithms and discovering that with not great difficulty. And why not let the regulatory agencies have that access rather than waiting until there's some, the media or some other hacker group has to expose a flaw, and then there's like a big fine and sort of procedural change. And so I think that's an area where I'm not sure, about nanotechnology per se, but like this arms race, this battle between two opposing parties, there's concrete ways you could level that playing field, I think, in very productive ways. And this is a longer conversation, but I also don't really buy the argument that this would infringe severely on the intellectual property of the kind of technology companies. I think it could be done in a way that lets them have their intellectual property, but provides much greater consumer protections.